Welcome to this episode of Shift. I'm your host, Palmonia Gordon, and I'm excited for the information I'm going to share with you today. To start, for those of you who tell yourself, I need to watch one more episode of my favorite show or movie, you want to hear this. This is your message today. I have an amazing lady that's here with me. Her name is Jen Bruer. Did I pronounce that correctly? She will adjust that pronunciation for me. She has a background as what we call a burnout prevention strategist. Burnout, you go crazy, you go postal, things fall apart, and you're not sure what is happening. In a nutshell, that's Palmonia version. So Jen is going to share a little bit of her background and what brought her to this place, because we don't born and say, oh, I'm going to be a burnout prevention. This is a result of what happens. And our intention, as we said, for 2022 is to help you to change and move into abundance, which first you want to change with the overall self, because our wealth is truly in our health. So welcome, Jane. Thank you for being a guest on Shift. Tell us a little bit about your background and what got you to this place where now you are a burnout prevention strategist or coach.
Thank you for having me, Palmonia. So it's the long story made short is that in 2011, I hit the wall of burnout. I was at the time parenting 9 children. So I had 4 foster children and 5 children within my blended family, which made up 9 children. And so maybe the queen of taking on too much. And I basically hit the wall of burnout. I was 220 pounds. I had a whole host of health issues that were impacting me greatly. So it wasn't until 2016, 2017 that I realized I had undergone a major transformation in my life that started with diet and in introducing a whole bunch of various strategies to help bring my body back into a state of balance. Mm-hmm. So I crawled out of that hole I found myself in. And then in 2017, I was like, hold on a second, I've gone through this major transformation. I need to tell others about it. And so that's what brings me here in this current work that I do.
Okay, so did you hear that? She had 9 kids. Huh. I almost was going to ask her if she's, and no disrespect intended, if she's a Newfie, because Newfoundlanders are known to have 9, 14. They just got a whole lot. I have a girlfriend, her brother, they had, I think 14, 9 at 9. They kept going because they were going for either a boy or the girl, opposite sex. And they just kept going. So
I'm not a Newfie, just to say.
I knew I can see that. But I mean, it could be something in our background. We don't even know sometimes the things that dictate or genes that allow us to operate the way we do. So you were at this point where life happened, because that's the thing. The song, as you spoke, the song popped into mind. I'm not your superwoman. Remember that song? Because that's how we function as individuals. Women so more than men. So forgive me if I'm speaking to the woman, because we juggle so much more and we are not mindful. So, okay, fine, the woman. So then what happened? You came to that wall, you started the changes. What created your superpower? And tell us about it.
Okay, so what created my superpower to recover the long, slow road to recovery, I would say. There's one of 2 things that we need to do. One is that we can add things to our practice, our body, and our life that will help to bring us back into a state of balance. And one is to remove some of the things that might be standing in the way of our achieving optimal balance. And so I teach people a whole load, like a whole laundry list of strategies that people can implement to help bring their body back into a state of balance. And I would say that there is not one holy grail. There isn't one main strategy that is like, this is the one that's going to help you, because it's really about all of those, implementing all of those strategies slowly and methodically, one by one. So, you know, my number one thing that I always try to tell people to start with is get your sleep in order. There are a whole load, and you and I have talked about this many times, that there are a whole load of sleep hacks. There are a whole host of reasons if you aren't sleeping optimally. There's a whole bunch of reasons that it could be root causes, and so getting to the stem of that root cause is important. Analyzing why it is that you're sleeping, how it is that you're sleeping, how often you're sleeping. Optimizing your sleep essentially is a really, really, really powerful hack toward burnout recovery and prevention.
Okay, so we need to sleep. You hear that, folks? So, people like myself, I'm not afraid of my bed. I will go into my bed, and after half an hour, I'll come back out to my office and I'll grab a notebook and a pen and just either tuck it under the pillow beside me or put it at my feet, because the thoughts are flowing, right? I have a girlfriend, she literally takes a sleeping pill at night because she says her brain doesn't shut off. And she works in a volatile industry, so to speak. So she needs to be awake.
So that brings me to my second major strategy, which is mindfulness. And those two things are really related, right? When we start to balance out one area of our life, other areas start to balance out as well. So if you're not balanced in your mind and your thoughts, you know, you're a mindset shifting practitioner, coach. And so I would say so am I, but maybe with a different spin. So, you know, I believe that our brain sometimes can go where it's wired to go. And so the rewiring really takes a consistent mindfulness practice. And so those two things, sleep and mindfulness, really, really interconnected.
Okay, so sleep and mindfulness. And don't get me wrong, because even when I say I don't sleep, I do what I call power naps. So if it's 3 o'clock, as a matter of fact, I was reading, I think it's the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And in that book, he says, hey, his dad literally walks around with those sleeping visors that you put on. And whenever he feels like taking a nap, he just slaps it on and let the kids wait. And I'm thinking, yay, because I do that. When I travel, especially if I'm driving, which is why I like traveling with my kids, I'm like, all right, guys, I need a nap. I pull off at a stop and I take a rest. So I just may not do the 8 hour. I've never slept for 8 hours, right? So don't listen to me, listen to Jen. She's the expert, right? I don't want to teach you my bad habits. That's why Jen is here to help me course correct, because we want to course correct so we're on a better path. If you're at 6, let's see if we can get you up to 8 hours. If you're like me at 4 or less, let's see if we can get you up to 5 or more. Okay, so Jen, what is the biggest problem that you solve, right? And what's the biggest problem that you solved? And tell us about a case with someone that you worked in and the result and the impact, because we know facts tell, stories, is what sell. Because you intrigued me, which Jen did not say, that when she started her journey, she shed 80 pounds. Now I know you don't want to go off as that kind of a specialist, but hello, it's the start of the new year. We all ate a little bit too much cake, and
including myself,
I
including
know you
myself.
had too much chocolate. So tell us, what's the biggest problem, and give us an example of how that came about.
So the biggest problem that I solve is helping people in general, and all of the things, all of the various hats that I wear, is helping people to find and achieve that state of balance, or at least improve uh, their balance in general. And I don't have a specific, you know, like for the most part, I do group coaching. So I rarely do, I do a little bit of individual coaching, but usually I would do that on the front of food coaching, not so much as a burnout prevention and recovery strategist. So I do parent coaching and I do food coaching. But as a burnout coach, I would say I do more group coaching. So I go into corporate environments and I teach um, trainings on burnout prevention and recovery, essentially.
Okay. And I mean, it's no story popped to mind, not a problem. Your own story says it all, because that's why people actually are able to buy you and what it is that you're doing, because you went from 210 to like, well, you're like 150 now or something like that. Hello.
Yes, I lost 80 pounds from 220. Yeah.
Right? Just by getting that into, you know, under control, understanding, because that's the we cannot shift unless we recognize where we are and where we want to go. Right? It's the same thing with taking up your GPS or getting in your car. You need to know where, if I'm going to go to Montreal, there's no way I can get on the 401 West. I'm always going to be moving away from where I'm going.
Wonderful analogy. It's so true.
Right? So it's that you got that. What would you say to the members of Shift Community? We want them to connect with you. We want them to say, okay, guys, I can help you. I can give you a guide. I grew up with the famous analogy that I still use with my kids. I'm sure you probably know it. You can lead a horse to water, but
you can't make it drink.
can't make them drink. So Jen and I are making you aware that your sleep may be the biggest thing right now that is impacting how we are doing in our overall wealth and health and finance, because we don't understand how everything trickles down. Because if you're not sleeping, you're probably staying up later watching TV, so you're running a bit more electricity. Then, of course, you're buying more snacks because you need to munch something. Because, come on, at 2 a.m., who's going to reach for an apple or a banana? You want something salty and crunchy, right?
Exactly. So what I would say is to the Shift community, what I would say to the community here is that I would say, when it comes to burnout, we often hear, take a long bath, learn to set boundaries, say no instead of saying yes, take on less in general. In other words, practice self-care. And practicing self-care is very, very important. But in addition to self-care, there are also additional strategies that we can put into place right now, today, that are quick and easy, that can help support us into a state of balance so that we have the energy to engage in that self-care. So I would urge you to check out my book, Helping Effortlessly, which will walk you through all of the pragmatic steps toward achieving that burnout. So sleep is a part of it. There's dietary hacks that can bring the body back into a state of balance from a burnt out state. There's consistent mindfulness practices, spiritual practices, mindset shifts. There's all sorts of strategies. So for example, people very few people know that there is something called adaptogenic herbs. There's literally a type of herb that helps our body to achieve a greater state of balance in terms of the stress response. And that's a little known hack that.
Do you drink that herb or smoke that herb? If you smoke it, I may have to consider it.
So there are herbs that you can take in teas. I'm sure there are things you can vape or smoke, but for the most part, I stick to the.
I'm not just saying if that was the only way, then maybe I would consider
it. So there's teas, there's tinctures, there's herbal supplements. There's all sorts of them. I think they even sell them, some of them in cream form. There's all sorts of different applications for adaptogenic herbs, which are herbs that help balance out the stress response in the body. And that's essentially what's happening with a state of burnout, is that your stress response is becoming completely imbalanced or irregular in some way. So adaptogenic herbs are something that should really be in your toolbox for sure.
Wow. So did you hear that, guys? I mean, Jen is so, I like to, I'm the queen of simplicity, I often say. So we got burnout herbs. We got, burnout prevention herbs that allow our body to come into a state of balance, right? Because it is so strange. I believe because we don't even drive, many people don't drive a manual transmission car, and they've never driven one. They don't even know the concept where if you're not able to get your gas and your clutch balance properly, you're not moving, you're not going anywhere. And that's kind of what we do in our bodies when we don't have the correct food and rest and mindfulness and saying, I like that one. That's one of my favorite words, but I don't.
Which
because
one?
Of NO, because of what I teach, I have found a better way to say no. Like if I say to my children, I will see, they go, oh, that means no. I said, I never said no. I said, I will see. So it doesn't put me in a position where, for myself, in relationship with my children specifically, because if I tell my children, yes, I'm going to do things, they won't stop until it's done. They keep asking.
Wonderful. You've taught them well.
Sorry?
You've taught them well.
Taught them well, yeah. Ask for what you want. If you keep asking, it will come. So, Jen, what's your website and where can we get your book? And what is your favorite? I'm sure you've listed so many. Your favorite burnout recovery strategies.
Okay. So my website is Jen Bruer with 2 N's.com. And my book can be found pretty much anywhere you can buy a book. So Amazon, Indigo Chapters, anywhere that you can buy a book, you can buy Helping Effortlessly. And my favorite strategies, so I think I've listed most of them, but I would say, mindset shifts are a big part of the burnout discussion and recovery and prevention, of course. There's a whole load of them. I would say if the starting point, I think for anyone who thinks they might be headed toward burnout or in a state of burnout, I would say please look at your sleep and how to fix it. And there's no perfect recipe for how to fix your sleep, because one person's sleep issues could be stemming from a lack of melatonin. Another person's lack of sleep could be stemming from feeling that wired state, maybe not having enough carbs in the evening. there's so many different reasons, all of which I go into, some of which I go into in the book. But certainly there's so many things you can do to support your sleep. And speaking of supporting your sleep, I also will be talking at our, Palmonia and I are both involved in an event happening. It's a free event, January 16th. You can sign up on Eventbrite. During that workshop, during that event, I will be speaking specifically about sleep. So I will be filling in all of the blanks of, here I'm just telling you that sleep in general is a good thing to hack in order to prevent burnout. But there I'll be going into some of the specifics about what those hacks would look like.
Okay. Awesome. Okay, so I'm excited about that. Yes, Jen and I are collaborating on the Woman Balancing Hat event, and we're just talking about how many hats women are balancing and the overall impact that it's having. I mean, if we're going to be honest, not everyone. My daughter almost went into tears this week when we got the call that they had to go back to online. She goes, "What? I mean, I was looking forward to going back to school." So when we went back to school, I'm thinking, man, can you even imagine the teachers? Because now they got to go home, they got to set up, devices. Now they're gonna probably have to adjust scheduling. So that's more. So now, predominantly women. Now you're teaching the kids, you're running the corporate office, and trying to keep the nice noise down, be professional, all under the same roof. There is no exhale. And when I mean exhale, it's just the opportunity to step away. That's kind of the huge difference when, yes, it was wear and tear driving, getting in the car and driving in, but it gave you some alone time, some reflective time, a little bit of a rest. So Jen, earlier when you were saying, if you feel you're at a state of burnout, and I thought, oh, can you put in a little capsule so the ordinary person that catches this can say, am I possibly in a state? Because when we don't know, we don't really know. We don't know what's that burnout. What are some of the cues? Yes, we know not sleeping well. Sometimes it's even eating more, because I know I do that. When I need, sometimes I have to tell myself, stop, go eat, because I find I'm snacking. I'm grabbing for snacks as opposed to going to rest.
Yes, and one of the reasons why we reach for snacks, particularly carbohydrates, when we're in a state of stress, is because the stress hormones are reduced when we use when we eat carbohydrates. So carbohydrates really quickly bring down the stress response, but it's only a temporary lift. So we're kind of using that as a crutch, if you will. So it temporarily brings it down, but if you're reaching for donuts all day long for every 2 hours, and sugary treats and chips and burgers and those kinds of carb containing things, what happens is it's like adding gasoline to the roaring fire of burnout. So it does help in the short term, but it does more damage in the long term. So one of the hacks that I do talk about in the book is getting your carbohydrate intake to resemble the way that the optimal balance of your stress hormones, which would be high in the morning and low at night. So trying to use carbohydrates as a hack, and it works pretty quickly. So yes, one of the symptoms for burnout is constantly reaching for sugary treats, and that's a sign of increased stress, not necessarily burnout. To know if you're in a state of burnout, there's the MBI, the Maslach Burnout Inventory. That often costs money to take that test, and there's plenty of quizzes that you can take online. I think most people know when they're headed toward burnout and when they are burnt out. I certainly knew it. Maybe I didn't have the language for it, but at the time I did it was pretty obvious. But the place that I would send all of your shift listeners to take a free online quiz is called adrenalquiz.com. And that's just a 5-minute quiz, and it will give you the full answer as to how burnt out and if you're burnt out, and then of course all of the hacks that I put into place.
Okay. So see, I mean, that's good to know. I mean, adrenalinequiz.com. That is hopefully they probably do have an app, but that's something it would be great to check, especially, in this season. I spoke to my sister in Atlanta this morning, and she's like, man, she, survived cancer. And she's like, since I had that episode, I'm intentional that every year I take a vacation. And I haven't been able to go now for 2 years, and it's kind of really, feeling the impact. So it's recognizing, because now for her, I can sense the build up talking to her, because of how she's speaking. It's like, man, I want to go, but there's so many. So Jen, thank you so much. I really appreciate, guys. I mean, we have gotten so much information. I am going to encourage you to connect with Jen. She's on social media, and we'll put her information down in the chat, in the comments. So make sure you read. Actually, Jen can probably go back and put her information in the comment as well. So make sure you read and take the time to educate yourself, right? It's the lack of knowledge why people perish. The knowledge is there, but no one took the time. It's the same thing. When in the old days, when we had gold rush, what did everybody do? Oh, there's gold in Colorado. You pack up and you went there because you wanted to get that. It's the same thing that we have to do, because this is not just about burnout prevention. It's your legacy. It's your family. It's the future. Because whether or not we know, nothing scared me like last year, November 18th. Every time I said to my daughter on her birthday, oh, be like mom. I'm like, oh boy. So you have to be an example. I have to be an example. We have to be an example as a community together. Jen, I'm going to let you have the last word. Close us out of shift. Oh, guys, please remember to leave your comment, subscribe, like, and of course, share the information. So go ahead, Jen. Floor is yours.
My last words, thank you for having me, Harmonia, and please check us out on social media and sign up for our event coming January 16th. It's a free event. You have nothing to lose. You'll be filled with lots of inspiring information by many amazing presenters.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. So there it is. Thank you for stopping by this episode of Shift. We love you. God bless you. Have a good day.